Hey, just as veterans, today's episode is pure courtroom drama, no Hollywood CGI needed. A routine civil case turns into a boxing match when Officer Bryant decked Judge Ayanna Williams, who, by the way, is a badass black woman with a razor-sharp tongue. Think justice is blind? Wait until you see her bloodied comeback. Smash, subscribe, and ring the bell. No fluff, no filter, because this story woke up the whole country. That early morning in Silver Springs bathed the old red bricks of the Marlow County Courthouse in a golden glow, as if summoning a storm on the horizon. Courtroom 7 fell into an eerie hush, the soft whir of recording devices and quiet breaths of the assembled crowd. When Judge Tessa Bennett strode in, her midnight black robe anchoring her like a beacon of justice, time itself seemed to pause. She was more than the arbiter of law. She embodied hope for every victim who'd been denied a voice. Her gaze, sharp as a scalpel, swept the room and pierced through every layer of privilege draped across the officers' uniforms. Across from her sat 35-year-old Officer Greg Turner, arms casually crossed, a self-satisfied grin playing on his lips. He exuded the confidence of a man long sheltered by unseen forces. 6 excessive force complaints, 2 racial bias allegations. Yet each time his misconduct threatened to surface, the paperwork vanished and inquiries quietly died. Whispers rippled through the gallery. Here we go again. Then came the smartphone video that detonated the city's complacency. Turner, unprovoked, landing a brutal blow on a black teenager pumping gas. The boy's head snapped back. The clip went viral overnight, igniting public outrage. Internal Affairs opened yet another investigation, and then silence. All evidence was quietly shelved. So this civil suit landed squarely on Judge Bennett's bench. No criminal charges, but a demand for truth that couldn't be ignored. As the bailiff called the court to order, the gavel's crack echoed like a starting gun for a battle between justice and impunity. The plaintiff's attorney pressed play on the video file, and Courtroom 7 erupted in shock-furrowed brows, clenched jaws, nods of solemn affirmation. Turner continued to turn away, crossing his arms, but for the first time he could not evade Judge Bennett's withering stare. Could you feel the tension crackling in the air? Beneath the polished wood veneer lay a tangle of hidden alliances and hushed directives, waiting to see if anyone would dare expose them. Judge Bennett, her heart tempered by years of confronting discrimination, was poised to deliver the knockout blow. Buckle up. This fight will take you from disbelief to exhilaration, and ultimately leave you in awe of truth's unwavering power. As soon as Judge Bennett had asserted her authority with that steely gaze, the plaintiff's attorney called Officer Turner to the stand. He swaggered forward, adjusting his crisp white shirt collar as if stepping onto a stage he owned. Tapping a silver pen on the podium, he telegraphed his confidence. This was a man who believed the law was his loyal bodyguard. Laying a hand on the Bible, Turner offered a derisive grin. "I was simply doing my duty," he proclaimed, voice echoing off the courtroom walls, "when the defendant attacked me without provocation. His body cam," he claimed, had malfunctioned at the crucial moment, leaving no footage to contradict his account. A murmur rippled through the gallery. Convenient camera glitch. Prearranged cover-up? Turner just shrugged, daring everyone to doubt him. Judge Bennett kept her head bowed, eyes sharp as needles, studying every flicker of Turner's expression. His fingers trembled slightly as he feigned, clutching his chest in pain. His stance wavered, as if hiding frailty beneath that uniform. Each practiced wince, each forced grimace, drew more suspicion from the audience. Turner finally tucked his pen into his vest pocket with a grinding of teeth. An officer used to wielding power, now feeling the chill of mistrust. He swept a defiant glare toward the black journalist in the back row, as if to say, "No one can stop me." But that same gaze, when met by Judge Bennett's unwavering stare, reflected not strength, but a fragile arrogance. Courtroom 7 held its breath. The hush wasn't just about one officer's testimony, but about the possibility that no one, no, even a badge-clad enforcer, was truly above the law. The tension pressed in so heavily that you could almost hear the walls creak under the weight of unspoken truths. When Turner finally finished, the room felt like the aftermath of a grand performance. Applause hung suspended on everyone's lips, nerves crackling in the silence. Judge Bennett rose with deliberate calm. Her voice, measured yet commanding, cut through the hush. "You may step down." In that instant, it became clear that the real trialpha, one of power versus principle, was only just beginning. When Officer Turner stepped down from the stand, the courtroom still crackling with tension, Tessa Sanders, the defense attorney, rose immediately. Young but razor-sharp, she didn't grandstand or wax poetic. She simply slammed her file on the table and fixed Turner with a steady gaze. Every eye from the judge to the prosecutor to the spectators locked onto her. "You say your camera malfunctioned?" Tessa began, her tone calm, yet cutting enough to make Turner hesitate. "Did you inspect it right after the incident, or just leave it broken forever?" Turner shrugged, offering a condescending smirk. "I followed protocol. My incident report and paperwork are all in order." A faint groan seemed to ripple through the polished wood desks. Tessa didn't miss a beat. She held up a photo of the teenager's bruised arm alongside medical notes. "So you believe those marks appeared by magic? Or maybe from the gas pump handle itself?" Her fingertip tapped the photo with surgical precision, the click echoing like a verdict. The prosecutor shifted uncomfortably as Tessa pressed on, sliding a neighbor's security camera still across the table. "You denied this clip existed, correct?" she asked Judge Howard Grayson, eyes never leaving Turner. Silence fell, broken only by the rustle of paper. Turner tried to fend her off with predictable denials. "That angle isn't clear enough." Tessa shot back, voice steely. "Just like your testimony, ambiguous, uncorroborated, lacking any physical proof." Heads around the room nodded in unison. She then meticulously walked him through the timeline. The beam of Turner's flashlight, the scuffle at the pump, the moment his fist connected with the youth's chest. Each question drilled deeper into his story's gaping holes. "You claim self-defense, yet there's no sign he ever struck first," she pressed. "No fingerprints on equipment, no corroborating witness. How do you explain that?" Turner's confidence cracked. Beads of sweat crept at his temple as Tessa's final question landed like a gavel. "If there's no video, no forensic evidence, and no brave witness stepping forward, on what basis do you insist he attacked you?" Her words hung in the charged silence like a banner declaring the truth. In that moment, Turner's facade of power and privilege collapsed. He sat helpless, a man once shielded by his badge, now stripped bare by the sharp clarity of Tessa Sanders' cross-examination. The real trial, the one between righteousness and lie, had just begun. The tension in the courtroom boiled over like a pressure cooker when Turner snarled, curling his lip, "Does a black woman even have the right to judge me?" His words rang out like iron chains scraping across cold stone, striking deep into every soul present. A ripple of murmurs swept through the gallery, but Tessa Bennett remained seated, her gaze unwavering like the sun breaking through a storm. In an instant, she rose to her full height, her voice calm yet resounding with authority. "Arrest this officer immediately, and keep the camera rolling as evidence." No sooner had she spoken than Turner lunged with an almost unbelievable speed. His punch landed with a thunderous crack, the leather glove slamming into Tessa's cheek. Blood spattered across the tiled floor like a damning verdict against a rotten system. The courtroom exploded into chaos. Cameras whipped up in frantic flashes. Spectators recoiled in shock, and some even tumbled from their seats. Yet in that sea of pandemonium, Tessa did not falter. She spread her arms slowly, as if bending time itself. 3 deputies stormed forward to subdue Turner in a scene fit for a heroic epic. Tessa inhaled deeply, retrieved a handkerchief from her inner pocket, pressed it to her wound and never once closed her eyes. Turning back toward the bench, her stare was a steel blade carving out one unambiguous message. "I am not a victim. I am justice itself standing tall." In that suspended moment, the courtroom fell silent, so profound that one could hear the rustle of breath. Then, as if on cue, a hush of applause rippled through the audience, not a cheer, but a solemn tribute to the upending of long-abused power. The spectators, once tense, now felt a strange liberation, though none could predict what would come next. Judge Howard Grayson, having witnessed the savage spectacle, banged his gavel twice with fierce authority to restore order. Turner was hauled out, handcuffs clinking like a preliminary sentence. The cameras stayed trained, capturing every spatter of blood, every steely glare, every gesture that left hearts pounding. Tessa sank back into her judicial chair and pressed a fresh cloth to her cheek. She laid a hand over the case files, reaffirming that the rule of law could not be extinguished by brute force. For the first time, justice was no intellectual abstraction but a living, bleeding reality, and this was only the overture to a far longer battle in which truth and justice would ultimately prevail. After that thunderous strike, the courtroom reverberated with a new reality. This was no longer just another police scandal, it was a turning point. Judge Tessa Bennett wasted no time. Within hours, she formally authorized the prosecution of Officer Greg Turner for assaulting a public official, invoking statutes designed to protect courtroom integrity and the rule of law. Simultaneously, she called for an immediate internal affairs inquiry into the Marlow County Police Department. News outlets picked up the story overnight, and by morning, "Justice has no blindfold" was trending coast to coast. The Marlow PD, under unprecedented public pressure, announced it had placed Turner on paid administrative leave and launched an administrative review of his conduct. Uniformed officers stationed outside the precinct bore witness to protesters' chants for accountability. Yet Tessa intuitively grasped that Turner was merely a symptom of a deeper malady. She turned to her trusted clerk, Lena, and instructed her to create an independent archive of every shred of video evidence, courtroom feeds, hallway cams, even the dash cam footage that district attorneys routinely lost in internal reviews. Lena worked through the night, downloading and encrypting terabytes of raw files to an off-site server, ensuring the unedited truth would survive any attempted cover-up. Meanwhile, street corners around Magnolia and Fifth Ware, the courthouse faced the city's historic brick facade sprouted bright blue and white banners proclaiming, "Justice served here." Grassroots organizations, civil rights lawyers, and local clergy rallied behind Tessa's stand, drafting proposed legislation to mandate body-worn cameras for all sworn officers and to streamline the appeals process for alleged assault victims. Every town hall in Georgia seemed to host a Justice Now forum, where Tessa's punch-loaded moment was hailed as both literal and symbolic, the moment the system punched back in earnest. By week's end, the "Justice Served Here" decals had spread to storefront windows, campaign trucks, and even downtown bus shelters. Faith leaders led prayer vigils outside the courthouse at sunrise, while evening candlelight marches wound through midtown streets. Tessa Bennett, the judge who refused to cower, became the movement's emblem. Editorial pages across the state lionized her courage, and even reluctant legislators felt the heat to sponsor transparency bills. In every corner of Georgia, civic clubs passed resolutions applauding her leadership. High school students organized pocket watch rallies, handing out leaflets demanding independent review boards. From Savannah to Dalton, people spoke of a judicial reckoning they had never dared imagine, and through it all, Judge Bennett remained focused, aware that her fight was about more than one punch, one officer, or one courtroom. It was about shoring up democracy itself, one unflinching act of justice at a time. Under mounting public outcry, the Marlow County Police Department and Ada Stephen Hale's office scrambled to show they were taking action. Within days, prosecutors filed preliminary charges against Greg Turner for abuse of power and deprivation of civil rights. But Judge Tessa Bennett sensed this was more than a face-saving maneuver. It was an opportunity to expose the rot beneath the veneer of compliance. Digging through archived court records late one night, she stumbled upon her father Noah Sanders' 2003 case file, the one in which a young Sanders had been illegally detained and beaten by none other than Officer Turner. She remembered her father's broken promise, "Some days they arrest you just for standing still." Now, those same arrest reports lay side by side with Turner's new misdeeds. The pattern was unmistakable. From that first wrongful arrest to the silenced assault on the teenager, Turner had walked a corridor of immunity, paved by official inaction. Armed with this evidence, Tessa summoned Stephen Hale to her chambers. The normally unflappable ADA entered with a stiff nod, but Tessa's steel-sharp gaze gave him pause. She laid out the 2 decades of Turner's hidden offenses, internal complaints, lost camera footage, and her father's forgotten appeal. "You were in charge of ensuring accountability," she said calmly, flipping through the stark juxtaposition of case files. Yet year after year, you let these investigations die. Why, Stephen? Hale's face tightened. He paused, then admitted in a low voice. I was told to stand down. From higher up, I can't say who. His confession hung in the air like a guillotine's blade. Tessa pressed further. Whose orders? Whose silence kept my father from justice and kept Turner on the street? Fear flickered behind Hale's eyes, but his professional oath tethered him to the truth. Realizing he had no escape, Hale reached for the subpoena. Tessa slid across her desk. With trembling pen, he signed an official directive to reopen Noah Sanders's 2003 arrest, along with every subsequent complaint against Turner. By endorsing it, he not only restored a 2-decade-old inquiry, but also publicly acknowledged the institutional cover-up that had shielded Turner and countless other officers. In that moment, Judge Bennett transformed a personal grievance into a systemic reckoning. She later read Hale's sworn statement into the record, documenting how orders from unnamed superiors had suppressed justice. The revelation sent shockwaves through the prosecutor's office and the police department alike. Not just one bad cop, but a network of complicity had been exposed. And with Stephen Hale's own handprint now on the call for investigation, there was no hiding the truth. The trialons focused on a single punch-had, evolved into a sweeping indictment of every silent guardian who had let power eclipse justice. Building on the momentum of Stephen Hale's confession, Judge Bennett convened a special public hearing open to anyone with a story the system had tried to bury. 8 survivors of Turner's unchecked violence were sworn in, one by one, to recount the scars both seen and unseen. First up was Raymond Ellis, now in his 60s. He described the bruise on his ribcage that blossomed black and blue after a routine traffic stop in 2009. He yanked me from my car, Ellis said, voice trembling but resolute. I was on my knees begging for mercy. No bystanders came to his aid. No cop car camera ever cut in. Next, Maya Jordan, then 17, recalled how Turner hauled her into a squad car for fitting the description of a suspect and left her cuffed in the back for 48 hours with no blanket, no bathroom break, no explanation. She still wakes at night, hearing the jangle of metal against metal. Devon, a college student, took the stand next. His face bore a faint scar from the punch that Turner delivered when Devon dared question the officer's authority. He told me to shut up or suffer worse, Devon testified. I thought I would die in that patrol car, alone. Over the next 2 hours, 5 more voices filled the courtroom. A single mother shoved against her car's hood, an immigrant dragged into a precinct, then forced to sign a confession in a language he barely understood. A teenager left bleeding on the sidewalk because officers couldn't find any injury in their reports. Each witness produced old medical records, faded photographs of bruises, and most damningly cell phone videos showing grotesque moments of brutality. The gallery sat in stunned silence, then erupted in outrage. Defense attorneys for Turner floundered, unable to dispute the raw, living truth before them. Every attempted objection irrelevant, speculative, hearsay, fell flat. The mounting testimonies had torn away the veneer of impartial procedure, exposing the underbelly of a department more concerned with self-preservation than justice. By the time the final witness stepped down, the courtroom walls seemed to tremble with collective grief and rage. The curtain of silence, long stitched by bureaucratic indifference, had been violently ripped asunder, and at the center of it all stood Judge Bennett, her gavel poised to record not just the outcome of one trial, but the first chapter of a sweeping reckoning against systemic abuse. No sooner had the last survivor left the stand than word arrived. The Department of Justice was stepping in. Overnight, federal agents descended on Marlow County, invoking statutes against deprivation of civil rights and obstruction of justice. The case that began as a single punch had mushroomed into a multi-agency investigation, complete with FBI, Civil Rights Division, and the U.S. Attorney's Office all working in tandem. Under the new indictment, Greg Turner faced additional federal charges. His sworn oath now weighed against a pattern of abuses stretching back 20 years. But he was not alone. Stephen Hale, once the ADA who balked at pursuing Turner's misconduct, was quietly escorted from his office in handcuffs and booked on charges of retaliation against a whistleblower, accused of actively suppressing complaints. Within days, subpoenas went out to a half-dozen high-ranking Marlow County officials, police commanders, internal affairs supervisors, even members of the county prosecutor's staff, each ordered to produce records and testify under oath. Judge Tessa Bennett, whose courtroom had first cracked this story wide open, was now summoned as the prosecution's star witness. In a secure hearing room in Silver Springs, they laid bare decades of hidden emails and redacted logs. One message from a deputy chief read, "Don't escalate the Sanders Case Public Relations Directive." Another from a civilian oversight board official instructed, "File drafts to clear Turner. Remove sensitive metadata." Tessa's detailed chronology compiled by her tireless clerk Lena showed how every baton drop, lost video clip, and deferred report had been meticulously orchestrated to shield Turner from scrutiny. Across the nation, cable news anchors replayed her testimony in prime time. Opinion pages headlined, "When the Badge Becomes a Blindfold," and social media ignited with calls for nationwide reform. Within weeks, 13 states introduced legislation mandating automatic retention of all body-worn camera footage for at least 1 year, plus independent review boards for officer misconduct. In Marlow County itself, sheriff's deputies found themselves under the strictest camera-on orders in the department's history. Even as Turner and Hale sat behind separate defense tables sewn in prison garb, the other in a borrowed suit. Public faith in policing hung in the balance. Yet for Tessa, it was never about personal vindication. Watching federal agents pore over files she'd secured, she felt a cautious hope that this reckoning, fueled by the voices of the silenced and powered by unbroken evidence, would finally undo the cover-ups entrenched since her father's arrest. When the special investigator closed her laptop late one evening, a single thought lingered. Real justice is built not on violence or silence, but on the courage to expose the rot, no matter where it hides under a badge. After a marathon of hearings that laid bare decades of cover-ups and brutality, Officer Greg Turner finally entered his plea. In open court, he admitted guilt to 3 federal charges: assaulting a public official, abuse of power, and racial discrimination. The weight of 2 decades' worth of victims' testimonies and Judge Tessa Bennett's unflinching scrutiny left him no choice but to own his actions. When the federal judge pronounced sentence, the room fell into a charged hush. Turner was ordered to serve 15 years in a high-security penitentiary, with absolutely no possibility of early parole. His public sector pension once thought untouchable was stripped entirely, and all benefits revoked. The gavel's final echo sounded like both a triumph of accountability and a warning that no badge grants immunity forever. In the courtroom's shuddering aftermath, there was a silence unlike any before. It wasn't fear or shock, but a collective reckoning. Journalists lowered their pens, advocates wiped tears away, and even hardened officials bowed their heads in recognition. Power, however entrenched, cannot endure in the face of unwavering justice. Across America, commentators praised the verdict as a turning point, proof that a system, fragile though it may be, can still be made to answer for its sins. For Judge Tessa Bennett, the moment was bittersweet. She had endured a savage blow, death threats, and the weight of her own father's long-forgotten arrest. Yet she rose each day with the same resolve: truth must prevail. As she walked out of the federal courthouse, her face still bearing a faint scar, crowds cheered, banners waved, and a new hashtag, Justice Unmasked, spread like wildfire. Tessa had become more than a jurist. She was the living emblem of a justice system redeemed, a beacon showing that even the most powerful must bow when the truth stands tall. Through this dramatic, blood-soaked journey, we learn that justice isn't an abstract noun but is built moment by people who dare to speak out and endure pain to defend what's right. The story reminds us that no matter how great the power, it crumbles if the truth is not blinded. If I were the protagonist, I would use my position on the bench to support victims' families, create a pro bono legal fund, and champion systemic transparency by driving independent investigations. I wouldn't stop at a single conviction. I would oversee reforms ensuring police body cams remain active, data stays intact, and citizens know their rights. As for whether racism will end by 2050, the answer lies with us. If everyone continues to question bias, foster dialogue, and enforce fair laws. That hope isn't fanciful. But if we stand by passively, the unjust machine will roar back to life. Only when each generation takes responsibility for the past and actively scripts the future can racism truly ebb away.